Habit training with high schoolers looks a little different from habit training with younger children. High school is the time to teach and train your students to cultivate good habits for themselves. How do you do that? Here are 7 helpful tips. Welcome to the Simply Charlotte Mason podcast. I'm Sonia Schaefer. When your children are young, you, as the parent, take the lead in helping them to cultivate good habits. You keep a watchful eye on your children, sizing up each one's strengths and weaknesses, and taking those into consideration as you set the habit goals. You provide the living examples and the encouragement and the consequences when needed. You help your children make good choices and walk them through those times when their wills grow tired. You celebrate their progress and keep watch over those habits already formed to make sure those don't fade away. The parent's role in habit training is pivotal, but you won't always be around your children to continue doing that. As they grow older, your students need to learn how to instill good habits for themselves. Today, I want to walk you through the habit process and give you 7 tips to help high school students get more involved in their own habit training. For each step of the process, you'll start by taking the lead and explaining to your student what you are doing and thinking as you walk through it. And you might stay at that point role for 2 or 3 habits. But your goal is going to be to gradually transfer that lead position to your teens. At the beginning, come with your suggestions and be prepared to offer your guidance quickly. Then, as your students begin to feel more comfortable and confident in walking through the steps of habit training that I'm going to share, shift more and more to a secondary support role. Be slower to offer your suggestions. Let your students take the lead. Will they be perfect? No. But you will be giving them the safety net of failing little in a loving and forgiving atmosphere, and being able to learn from those mistakes and continue to grow. So let's walk through how to do habit training for yourself, and I'll share my helpful tips along the way. Number 1, make a master list. Once your students reach high school, you only have about 4 more years together in the same house. These are precious weeks to put the finishing touches on good character and to shore up any weaknesses. So begin by making a list of the most important habits that your students need to work on in order to set them up for success when they step out on their own. As you get started with this step, you might create a list of only 6 habits to work on. If you spend 2 months on each habit, as Charlotte Mason recommended, those 6 habits will take you through a year. Then, when it's time to create a list for the next year, let your students take the lead in evaluating their own habits and suggesting areas for improvement. You might add a suggestion or 2 of your own, but let them go first and give their ideas priority. Number 2, choose one habit. From that master list of habits that you and your students created, just choose one to start with. The principle of focusing on only one habit at a time is crucial. Assure your students that you will get to the others on the list, but they need to select which one to start with. And then coach them to word that habit as a positive, what they do want to take place. So rather than wording a habit as, "I will not stay up so late," encourage them to state what they do want to happen instead. "I will get enough sleep at night." Well, then help them make that habit so specific that they can quickly and easily determine whether they did it. For example, "I will shut off all electronics by 10 o'clock and be in bed by 11 o'clock on school nights." That's specific. One specific, positive worded habit at a time. All right, number 3 is to find the right inspiring idea. It's especially important when setting your own habit goals to find an inspiring idea that fits you well. An inspiring idea is one that you can see vividly in your mind's eye, one that makes you excited and willing to do the hard work in order to see it happen. Not all inspiring ideas are created equal. Some people will be motivated simply because they've been told this is the right thing to do, so they're ready and willing to work at doing it. But that doesn't work for everybody. Some people are more motivated by how their actions may affect others. Some are motivated by reasoning. Once that habit has passed the test of all their logical questions, then they're ready to take it on board and work toward it. Some people need to come to the conclusion that, oh, this habit is a key element of who they want to become as a person, a part of their identity. Different ideas will motivate different types of people. So it's very important for your students to find the ideas that inspire each of them as individuals. This is the time to explore the benefits of the habit that they will be working on. A strong why in their hearts will help them keep going when the going gets tough. Discuss various benefits at this stage in the process and help your students discover what kind of inspiring ideas are going to work for them. Number 4, set up an obvious trigger. The key to getting a habit started is to decide on a trigger. This is what will cue your brain to practice the habit. Now, in our example earlier about getting enough sleep, the students would need some kind of trigger at 10 o'clock to cue them to shut off all electronics, and then possibly another trigger at 11 o'clock to cue them to make sure they're in bed. Here's the key. When you're first starting out with a new habit, make the triggers as obvious as possible. Set reminders, turn on alarms, post signs, lay out your pajamas, do whatever it takes. The more obvious the trigger is, the easier it will be to respond to it every time. And that's what sets up a habit, doing it every time. Now, here's an important tip. Parents, make sure that you don't become the trigger. If the goal is for your high schoolers to learn how to work on their own habits when they're grown and gone, they need to learn how to set up their own triggers, independent from you. So encourage them to figure out what will work best for each of them, what will be obvious enough to cue their brains when to perform the habit. The good news is that once the habit is established, they probably won't need the trigger anymore. Their brains and bodies will just adapt to the new habit. But when they're first starting out, an obvious trigger will help them make the most progress in the shortest amount of time. Number 5, focus on frequency. You may recall that a habit is set up in the neurons of a person's brain. Every time a person performs a certain action, the brain neurons fire in a certain path. The more times that action is repeated, the more deeply ingrained that neuron path becomes until it fires automatically. Notice now, it is the frequency, the repetition, that helps the habit become established. So encourage your students to make it as easy as possible to repeat their selected habit. For example, turn off all electronics by 10 o'clock. That's a simple action. But if your students have to crawl under furniture to unplug something, or they have to manually do a backup of the hard drive before they can turn off the laptop, or if they're sharing it with someone else who isn't done working on it yet, all of those things are going to make it more difficult to repeat that habit faithfully. Help your students brainstorm potential obstacles to performing their chosen habit, and then work together to figure out some ways that they might be able to eliminate those obstacles as much as possible. Now, the other side of the coin is if the habit itself that your students selected is just too complicated from the start. Maybe they want to work on a habit of keeping their room clean. Every Saturday, I will clean my room. Well, that habit could easily expand into a full-day project if they're not careful. Clean my room, it could mean picking up everything on the floor, sorting it, putting away whatever's out of place, throwing away the trash, changing the sheets on the bed, washing the sheets to put them back on the bed, vacuuming the floor, dusting the furniture, washing the windows, cleaning the blinds or the curtains, scrubbing the baseboards and the doors, cleaning out the closet. That project can become huge. And if your students are trying to do that whole routine every Saturday, the chances of establishing that habit are pretty small. It's too much to tackle all at once. Remember, the key is frequency, not magnitude. Repetition is what forms a habit. So encourage your students to start small, but do it faithfully every time. Focus on the repetition rather than the magnitude. Repetition is what will get the habit path established in those neurons. So perhaps when that obvious clean the room trigger goes off, they'll only pick up what's on the floor and put it away. That's it. Well, that's enough to get that habit established. The neurons are going to start firing a clean my room path on Saturdays. And once that path is in place, they can expand on it later. But keep it simple and easy to repeat when you're first starting out. Frequency is the key. Number 6, review helpful strategies. We all have moments when our wills grow weary and our emotions rise to the top, and we just don't want to put forth the effort anymore. What's the use? I really don't care right now. Well, those are the moments when our students need some strategies to help them keep going on the right path. 3 simple and helpful strategies come to mind. Distance yourself, distract yourself, and remind yourself. Distance yourself from what might be tempting you. Take a lesson from Joseph in Genesis 39 and physically move yourself away from what you know you should avoid, but your emotions are enticing you toward. Run. Put physical distance between yourself and the temptation. Now, if you can't distance yourself physically, you can distance yourself mentally. And that's what distraction is. Distract yourself. Think about something else. Try to pick a thought that is appealing and engaging to you, something that will capture your thoughts and hold them in a totally different direction. Studies have shown that it takes only about 10 or 15 minutes of thinking about something else to recharge your will's batteries and be ready to stand strong again. Distraction can be a great help. And then the third strategy is to remind yourself of why you're doing this habit. This is where your inspiring idea comes in again. Picking that right inspiring idea is so important because it can help us keep going in the right direction even when we're tired. We just need to remind ourselves of it. Distance yourself, distract yourself, and remind yourself. Now, I recommend that you share these 3 strategies with your students during a neutral time, not in the midst of a tired will crisis. You can gently remind your students of the strategies in the midst of a crisis, but that should not be the first time they've heard about them. Take some time to equip your students with these ideas. Then simply help them remember to use the strategies when they can feel their wills growing weak and their emotions trying to take over. Number 7, encourage, don't nag. All of us can benefit from a person who comes alongside and encourages us when we're forming a new habit. And we can be that person for our high schoolers, but we need to know how best to encourage them. Some might want us to hold them accountable and do a daily check-in, but others might find that routine not very encouraging at all. Some might want to celebrate progress along the way. Others might prefer a more laid-back approach. Some might want you and ask you to give them an appropriate consequence and apply tough love when it's needed. Others might want to hear about your experiences with habit goals and how you deal with struggles or progress. Some might like public recognition. Others might shrink from that. The main thing to remember is what encourages you. It might not be the same thing that encourages your students. It could be, but it might not. So here's my tip. Sit down and talk about it. How can I best encourage you as you work on this habit? If your students don't have any ideas at first, you can suggest some, but respect them enough as persons to get their thoughts and then honor those ideas. And if you notice your students struggling, take some time to calmly help them think through what's happening and why it might be happening. And then brainstorm some potential adjustments that might help them get back on track. Remember, your goal is to gradually transition to their taking the initiative and you just being a sounding board and a coach. So be careful not to get sucked into this tendency to drop hints or reminders. Rather than, oh, don't forget to clean your room today. No, you can ask, hey, how are things going with your habit of cleaning your room on Saturdays? And then listen with an open mind and a sympathetic heart. Instilling good habits is an important part of continuing to grow as an adult. You can set your high school students up for success in life if you teach them how to go about it and give them time to practice working on their own habits. If you would like more encouragement in this important area of cultivating your own habits, I invite you to take a look at the book Laying Down the Rails for Yourself. You might want to read and discuss it with your high schooler. It covers many of the ideas we talked about today, and it gives additional tips about getting back on track and strengthening your will and how habits can become a delight. Check the description for a link. Thanks for joining me. I'll see you next time.